Hey, what's up, guys? If you're new to the channel or if you don't know me, my name's Josh Cohen, and I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be starting a new kind of video series, I guess, on Bible stories. And I don't know, I just feel like I've had this conversation with Jocelyn recently, and I feel like we heard a lot of Bible stories like as kids, and growing up, like in kids' church, you always hear all these great stories, but one, which is great. Like, I think that's fantastic. I think it's awesome when a kid grows up learning these stories and these scriptures. But I think one, the stories are kind of these details that are left out because they're either not appropriate for children, right? Remember learning David and Goliath as a kid, did not learn that he cut his head off until I was quite a little bit older, because you don't tell that at kids' church, right? And then sometimes it's just like concepts that we don't get as children, right? That are a little more complicated, maybe. That as an adult you can start to understand these different ideas. The world's maybe not as black and white as we thought it was, so there's some nuance to things and these stories. And then the other thing is, the lesson that I learned usually as a kid was just very simplistic, which again is like that idea of like as a kid, like they're learning right from wrong. Usually I feel like the lesson was like, obey your parents or obey the teachers at Sunday school, or which is good things, right? And that's in there. But as you get older, you start to read them more and understand the nuances. So what I want to do is do this little video series where I don't know how long I'm going to do it, how many I'm going to do. I don't even know what stories. I have some ideas of some things, but I just want to share kind of these Bible stories that maybe you're familiar with, and maybe you already know everything I'm going to say. That's fine. But I'm hoping that it can shed a little bit different of a light for you on these stories, but also encourage you to go back and read them again, right? I'm going to read some verses from it, but I want you to go back and read these for yourself. And I just think it's important, and I don't think enough of us, including myself, actually go back and read these stories as adults. Like, we're just so familiar with them growing up in the church, maybe, that we don't actually read them for ourselves anymore, or we don't maybe spend the time learning the nuances of these stories. Okay, so before I get started, I do want to give a shout out to Jake Weinecke. This is one of his jerseys when he played in Canada. He's Maple Grove's own. Good dude, love him, awesome man of God. So I just wanted to wrap him in his jersey. You'll see me wear probably jerseys a lot in these videos if you're new to my show. Jerseys, shoes, hats, kind of my thing. So today I'm going to start with Gideon, and you can find his story in Judges 6 through 8. And again, this is a story that if you grew up in the church, you've probably heard, or at least heard his name mentioned at one point. You know, he was famous for, he had 300 men in his army, right? Actually, he was bigger, but then whittled it down, and then still defeated the enemy army with only 300 men, which is obviously a big deal. Really cool. Love that. He also is known by some for he kind of tested God, or wanted to see a sign, where he put out this fleece, and he wanted, I think it was dew on the fleece, but not the ground, and then the other way around, or which one is switched like that. Which is a cool side note, that God showed up for him. Now, I will say this is Old Testament, and God had a different relationship with his people than he does now. So I think if you try to test God with some sort of sign, he might not answer you the way you want him to answer you today, because now we have a different covenant, different relationship. We can speak to God directly. He doesn't need to perform some trick to get our attention. Like, he lives inside of us and can speak with us anytime we want, right? And so we also have a lot of great churches and preachers and mentors and scriptures, a lot more than Gideon had. And so it's a different time, but I will say, if you are looking for something from God, he will answer you. And so be encouraged in that. But that's not even what I'm going to talk about. Let me start in Judges 6, when we first see Gideon. 6 verse 1 says, "Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Midian for 7 years." Okay, so you'll see this throughout the Old Testament. Israel, again, different covenant. Israel does bad, they get delivered to their enemies. And so the Midianites are their enemies, and they're oppressing the Israel people. Down to verse 12, it says, "The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him," this is Gideon, he said to Gideon, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." And so this is one of the parts of the story that I remember growing up as a kid is that the angel spoke to who God created him to be, not who he was necessarily was in the moment, right? At the time, he's hiding in the wine press. And Gideon is, and you'll see him say later, I'm not important. I'm not a big deal. I'm the weakest of the weakest tribes, essentially, is what he says. Like, I'm not a big deal. But the angel doesn't address him as that. He addresses him as mighty man of valor, because he knows who God created him to be. And so that's the way that God speaks to you and me. God created us and called us for great things. And so that's the way he addresses you. So I want to encourage you to think of yourself that way. And I'm telling myself in the future this too, that I might see myself through the lens of the failures that I've done, even, long time ago, or even as recently as this morning. Maybe you did something stupid. God doesn't look at you that way. He looks at you and he sees the greatness that he created you for. And you need to look at yourself that same way. Let's keep reading. Verse 13 says, Gideon said to him, so he responded to the angel of the Lord, "O Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles from which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hand of the Midianites." So basically Gideon's saying, like, I've heard the stories. I believe in what you've done in the past. Where are you now, though? And isn't that kind of what a lot of us are saying right now? I know I say that all the time. Like, I read the Bible and I'm like, yeah, great stories. I've seen God move. I've heard stories of friends and family members that have been healed, set free, delivered, provided for. And I'm like, where is that in my life? And I get frustrated. And this is exactly where God meets Gideon, in that place of frustration. He's saying, I believe in this stuff, but where is it? Where is it now? Why am I not seeing it in my life? Why don't you answer my prayers? The next verse, this is what he says. This is what the angel says back to them. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? So God basically told Gideon, get up and do something. You are the answer to your own prayers. Sometimes you are the answer to your own prayers. Gideon was the answer to his own prayers. Sometimes God wants to use you, and you're praying about something and you're like, God, do this, God, do this, God, do this. And God's like, okay, do it. Let's go do it. Like, God often uses people to answer your prayers, right? If you need money, right? God could create money and rain it down from the sky. He's probably not going to. He's probably going to have someone give you money, or maybe give you a job opportunity. You got to earn the money. But God uses people, right? All the time. But God wants to use other people to answer your prayers, but he also wants to use you to answer somebody else's prayers. And he wants to use you to answer your own prayers. So I'm going to say absolutely pray, but then listen for God's response, because he might tell you to do something. He might tell you, okay, I hear you. I'm going to use you to do it. So maybe sometimes our prayers aren't being answered because we are not doing anything, because God says, I hear you and I want to use you to do it, but you got to get up and do it. And we might still be sitting here praying about something that God's like, I got the answer for you. It's you. I've equipped you to answer your own prayers. But then listen to what Gideon says here in verse 15. This is what I talked about earlier. So he said to him, Oh, my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. So he's got excuses, right? Isn't that like us? Don't we have excuses? And some of them might be valid. Maybe he is nobody from nowhere, and he's not this mighty man, or he hasn't been this mighty man of valor that the angel of the Lord calls him and says that he is. He's got excuses, and they might be valid, but this is what God said. He doesn't really respond to his excuses, or he doesn't really validate his excuses. Instead, he says, or he doesn't even change his mind. He doesn't say, no, you're not that weak. You're not the least in your father's household. Here's what he says. Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianite as one man. So here's the thing. Your excuses might be valid, And you may not be good enough, strong enough, talented enough, whatever on your own to answer your prayers. But God is going to be there with you. God isn't asking you to answer your own prayers in your own strength. He is going to equip you and be with you and strengthen you and give you what you need to accomplish those things that he's called you to do. Throughout the Bible, we see God calling people to do things that they cannot do on their own strength, but he empowers them to do that. So let me ask you, what are you praying about? Has God asked you to do something about it? Maybe it's something big like violence in the world or racism or world hunger. Maybe it's something that's maybe a little bit smaller scale and just a broken relationship in your own life. Keep praying, but also go. Do something and allow God to use you to answer your own prayers.